Hey, how's it going? Hey, how's it going?
Great.
So if you ask a big group of people how it's going and you kind of hint with your voice that something sexy's going on, you get a little bit of it.
Was that a sexy voice?
How's it going? Okay, we're going to start here so we can be on time and so forth. Everybody, this is Helicon West in here tonight. So if you showed up for the pet suicide support group or how to pad your resume if you're an English major workshop, it's the wrong place. It's Helicon West tonight, and we have a special guest, Darren Edwards. So it's good to see a lot of people here tonight, and I'm sure it's going to be a great reading. One of the things that Darren asked me, he said, "Can I get a freestanding mic stand?" I was like, "I don't really know." And then he said, "Will it be okay if it's really, really loud?" And I was thinking, "Well, Darren, it's in the library." And I thought, I don't care. Doesn't make any difference to me. I said, "No, it doesn't matter. Be as loud as you want." So I could get loud. But first things first, thank you to the Logan Library. Thank you, Joseph, for accommodating us, giving us this nice, spacious, comfortable room in which to have our event. Thank you to the USU Writing Center for their support. We have broadsides from the Writing Center. They are $2 per. And this broadside features Nelda Alt, who is right here, I think, before, and Anna Bullock Brown, who I think is also right here. And some artwork by Grace Reiser. Very cool paintings. So grab one of those if you're so inclined.
And Brian Cook is the editor.
And Brian Cook is the editor. Thank you, Brian. And thank you to the Helicon committee for doing so much behind the scenes and helping things run smoothly. So thank you to all those people. Thank you, Star. Thank you, Nick. Okay, so back to Edwards. We have Darren Edwards here tonight from St. George. He and I have been talking about working this little trade. Like one of us come up here, one of us go down there, and do like this reading trade. And it's been like a couple of years since we started talking about doing it, and I think we thought it was like more complicated than it really should have been, because we were talking about getting money from the Arts Council to pay for gas and who should come and when and everything. It was just, now it's just like, all we have to really do is just get in a car and drive for a while. And so he's here, and just really fast, I met Edwards, not here at Helicon West, but at Helicon West, back at Citrus and Sage, if any of you have been around long enough to remember when we were over there the first time. And you know, back then, I kind of view those days as sort of kind of the golden age of Helicon West, because today Helicon West is very stable and sturdy and high functioning. We get big crowds a lot of the time, and we have, we fill up our open mic list. We have very distinguished guest readers. We have community support. Standing people, there's places right here in the front if you'd like to come forward, just doing gymnastics. It's a very good, well-established program. Back then, it was kind of more like a little band of like freedom fighters. There was this kind of insurgent vibe to it. There was kind of this counterculture to it. It felt like we were really doing something wrong. And every time I would sit in Helicon West, like there in Citrus and Sage, I was just imagining like a SWAT team sweeping in and just shutting the place down, hauling all us off to some, secret prison. And Edwards was kind of a part of that, because he was bringing in the slam, and he would bring in beat poetry and stuff. And what did I say? He finally caught up with me.
No, it's coming from me.
Is that your phone?
Someone else in an emergency.
Oh, okay. So, he would write poetry about skateboarding in parking lots of churches and getting chased away by the man, and he would write poetry about punk rock music, and it was always just, it was always very impressive, and it kind of brought that edgy influence in. He and I kind of became friends, and then almost immediately we were into this writing group together, and the writing group consisted of me, just a random guy from the town of Logan, and like 8 or 9 graduate instructors from the English department. So just a meeting would be just a random guy and 8 or 9 graduate instructors from the English department. And I don't know if you can imagine what it was like, but for me it was a really fantastic opportunity to learn everything there was to know about graduate instructors. Where they go at night and how they behave and the things they say. And the first thing that I learned is that they walk around all day, graduate instructors from the English department walk around all day with their skulls full of information, just packed with information that they've picked up during this 4-year program of theirs. And the next thing I learned is they have no idea what to do with it. Not at all. Which is, I guess, why they make them instructors, because they to practically apply all this knowledge. But it's coming out of their heads, it's falling on you, it's getting all over you, and they're just very eager to help, and they have all this boundless energy, and it really was a great group. And we went to dinner, and it was like 4 or 5 of us from that group, and I just wanted to like whip out the red pen and start going at it again. But I learned so much. I look back on those days with such fondness because it was Helicon West happening, and there was this group happening, and there were so many people who were right there ready to help me when I started asking questions, and I started trying to figure all this out. And but Edwards was definitely right there at the front of the line, and just always just eager to help, eager to answer questions, and also eager to like exchange information, and just so open to critique and review and stuff. And so the reason that I said that I tell you all of this is because it kind of started right here. And there's a lot of you who are very young and maybe starting to write or not even writing yet. And I don't want to say that Edwards coming here as a guest reader is like closing the circuit or anything. But if you can imagine like one of those evolutionary diagrams where the amoeba turns into an amphibian, and the amphibian turns into a lizard, and the lizard turns into a monkey, and the monkey turns into a dude. This is definitely a point on one of those charts. And, and I see Edwards now, and I see him, I'm on that Facebook thing, and he's doing his open mic series down in St. George, and he's just giving it 100%. And so I hope that everybody realizes, maybe those who are somewhat new to Helicon West, what you really have here. It's a proving ground. It's kind of a hatching ground. It's a place where really cool things can happen. It's a place where you can kind of make a start. If you're further along, you can evolve. You can evolve from an amoeba to a reptile. Just like that. That's what I am. I'm a modern day reptile. So that's just a little bit about Darren. I told him I was going to tell that story. And now I'll go ahead with the official sort of introduction. Darren Edwards is a writer and performer. He received both his BS and MS in English from Utah State University, where he worked as an editorial assistant for Isotope. My book is freaking out. A journal of literary, nature, and science writing, and served on the Helicon West Planning Committee. After graduating, he started his own publication, New Graffiti, Literature on the Streets, which during its 3-year run received Best in-State designation from City Weekly, and had the honor of showcasing work from Star Coolbrook, Russ Beck, Chad Van Zanten, Russ Wynn, among others. Currently, Darren teaches courses in composition, literature, and creative writing for Dixie State University. In addition, he co-founded Storm the Mic, which is just such an incredibly cool name. Probably the coolest name of any open mic series anywhere, which is a weekly open mic for creative writing, and he is serving as Slam Master for Wham Bam Thank You Slam, which is probably the second coolest. His essays and poetry have appeared in a number of journals, including referential magazines, Camus, and Stone Voices, and also Bareback Magazine. There's a literary Bareback magazine, and there's an erotic magazine. It doesn't specify which one it is. And he's a local favorite, well-beloved guy. So please join me in welcoming the cool and hip stylings of Darren Edwards. Edwards. I said, oh, it's attached.
We're going to see if I can trip on this or die somehow tonight at some point.
Do you want to just set up this one?
I think make this work. Maybe. Balanced a little bit more. Okay. Does that work? Everybody can hear me? Oh, good. Good. Thank you, Chad, for that introduction. That was awesome. You made me sound much cooler than I am.
Yes.
It's true, it really is. But I'm thrilled to be back here. It is kind of a coming full circle for me as well. Utah State was where I really found my voice as a writer and where I started to find my voice as a performer. And I don't know if Star remembers this. This was a major turning point in my evolution as a performer. We were doing Helicon West specifically for Utah Public Radio's literary show Synecdoche. And we did a rehearsal the night before, and everybody did their thing, and it went really well. And the next day, Star saw me on campus. Sweetest thing anyone has ever done for me. She takes me by the arm and she says, "You need to come in my office. We're going to work on your reading." And it was so sweet, though, because she talked to me about what I was doing wrong, and she helped me see what I was doing right, and it was really good. So hopefully I don't let you down tonight. I am going to get pretty loud. I don't know if we want to close that door.
It locks is the only.
Oh, does it lock us all in here? Well, that's awesome. Let's do that. Okay. So I've cut a couple poems so I can stay under time. If Star or somebody, if I like within 5 minutes of when you need to be done, just kind of go, and I will know that means to stop. So, I've given a lot of performances in the past 5 years, and one of the things that I find when I'm with a new audience, and this is, while it's an old audience, it's also very much a new audience, is that if they're not used to slam or performance poetry, it can be a little awkward at first. There's that ice breaking. And so I like to use somebody else's poem to break the awkward ice. And so we're going to do that first, and then we're going to go on to my stuff. Do any of you know who Buddy Wakefield is?
Yeah.
Yay! We're going to do my very favorite Buddy Wakefield poem. So here it goes. When I was a child, the first thing I would do when I walked into someone's house was ask them where the toys were. If they said they did not have any toys, I would be like, "What the fuck?" So that's what you're in for tonight.
Wow.
Okay. So I'm going to try and go fairly quickly so I can get through most of these. I'm not going to give a lot of introductions. This first one is one that's actually old enough that some of you may have heard it before. It's called Witness. You can hear her screaming from the other side of the room. Wide-eyed, tight-toothed, closed-lipped, silent. She's got this one bulbous knuckle on her middle finger where all the pent-up screams have pitched camp. Her 3-year-old is pulling at the hem of her pants and crying, "Mommy, Mama, Mom, Mom, Mommy." And I can see it in the way her cheek rises at the corner. Like it's trying to pinch a single sheet of paper to her eye. She might lose it. But the trick is that paper being pinched between cheek and eye is scrawled all over with marching orders for those rising screams, saying, "I don't have time to lose it today. I don't have time to peel back the eyes and shock the minds of the people in this waiting room with the thoughts screaming through mine. I don't have the energy to feed this world with my anger." And her 3-year-old is pulling at the hem of her pants and crying, "Mommy, Mama, Mom, Mom, Mommy." And the nurse is fumbling through files, and the overgrown mustache sitting next to her is eyeing the line of her denims as they round her hip. And the middle-aged gaggle across the room is whispering, not so quietly, about her inattention to the child. And I'm fiddling with my glasses, like a scientist watching the slow traverse of stars. And her 3-year-old is crying, "Mommy, Mama, Mom, Mom, Mommy." So when she stands, sudden, unannounced, 3-year-old still attached to the hem, everything stops. I can feel my shoulders tighten as she lifts the child onto her hip, takes 3 brisk strides across the room to the nurse. Child, now pulling at her blouse, her mouth opens. And the gaggle is holding their breath and their whispers. Even the mustache is traded in his leer for a look of quizzical concern. And I'm waiting for a supernova, some cosmic collision, another big bang, when she asks in the most polite tone, how much longer might the wait be? And the nurse smiles, gesturing with the space between two fingers, just a little while longer. Lowering the child to the floor, she retakes her seat, where she can feel the eyes and the whispers, and she goes back to rubbing her thumb in circles over that knuckle, circle after circle, to the rhythm of all those screams marching on. This next poem will explain why I get nervous drinking water during shows. This is also probably my loudest poem, so fun! Okay. I have mastered the art of social awkwardness. When I pass you in the hallway at work, well, I'm on my way to the bathroom for like the 20th time of the day, because I have a bladder the size of a squirrel. Well, not the size of the actual squirrel, because those mothers can get big. I mean, have you been to the beaches of California? I'm referring to the squirrel's bladder. I have a bladder the size of a squirrel's bladder. And when I pass you as you're heading to do something which I imagine is immensely more important than urinating, and you greet me with an enthusiastic hi and a gracious wave of your hand, you should know this is the exact moment my shit starts to freak out. See, the trick to nurturing a really artful social awkwardness is to start when you're young. You need to be too up in your own head, probably imagining you're a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, to be able to learn social norms and graces. That way, later in life, you can stress over questions like, oh shit, do they want to have a real conversation? Are they going to think I'm rude if I just say hi back and don't ask them something more in-depth? Something that shows that I care about them as a person. This is the point when you need to listen to the little panicky voice in your head. Mine sounds like Raymond, you know, from Everybody Loves Raymond, and this voice tells me to say, so how's your family? And you will smile at this, and I will immediately start to overanalyze your smile, trying to determine if it's a sincere smile, a pity smile, or no, maybe it's a scared smile. Like you're freaked out that I want to know about your family. Like you think that I'm some crazy stalker, and you are totally justified. I mean, who asks about someone's family? Where do I get off? Who do I think I am? Well, now I've missed your answer. So I don't know how to respond as you stare at me like I'm some horrible monster. So I'll say something just to get out of there before I can do more damage. Well, that's good to hear. I say, hoping you didn't just tell me that your dog died or your daughter got knocked up. But you nod your head and lift your eyebrows, which I take, at first, as a sign that I've answered correctly. But then I start to overanalyze things again, and then I start to think about how every time I write out the word analyze, the first part, anal, makes me giggle inside my head. Now, as I'm having this deep personal realization, I'll notice you've grown quiet. Shit. You can tell I'm thinking about the word anal. Lord, now you think I'm a pervert. So I say, have a good day, in the most overcompensating tone ever, hoping that your memory of this moment will fade faster than Raymond's laugh track. Because this is the crux of it. The true secret to the mastery of being socially awkward. You have to care. See, as much as I want to be liked, and Lord knows I do, that's not the real reason I'm freaking out. It's you. It's sincere concern over how this arbitrary, casual interaction with me is going to affect your day. Because somewhere inside of me, I recognize what a miraculously beautiful aberration you are, spinning here on this world wrapped with ocean, tucked away in this obscure corner of everything that exists. You are worth so much more than I could possibly provide in this glancing encounter. And you show it as you laugh a little and continue on your way. You have no idea how many times I've had to go to the bathroom when it was awkward and Nikki's like, squirrel bladder. Happens. Okay, so the first time I ever gave like a feature was at the Kayenta Arts, out at Kayenta, the Kayenta Arts Foundation put it on, and I had never had like a whole section to myself, and so I picked all these poems that I thought were awesome, and they were good poems, but they were all really dark and really heavy, and about halfway through my set, I looked out at the crowd and I'm like, they're all gonna go kill themselves. I need to mix this stuff up, so I've kind of given you guys a mix of dark and light stuff tonight. This is one of the darker pieces. This is actually, Chet talked about kind of that golden era. If you were a graduate student or an undergrad in that golden era, then one of the things that is a telltale sign you are is that you will understand how to read and how to write a braided essay. It's like a marker of being a USU grad. And this poem kind of leads off that. It's kind of a little bit braided modular. It takes two different topics and bounces back and forth between them and then merges together. It's called hematology. And I need to remember the first line before I can start it. Since Anthony van Leeuwenhoek invented the microscope in 1642, we've mapped the circulation of blood, identified individual blood types, ended the practice of bloodletting as a cure for disease, and subdivided blood into its base components. Each transparent red bead spread between glass slides, teaching us that much more about ourselves. Jacobus Devor Haynes' golden legend is full of people who crawled towards death, begging to become martyrs. Saint Boniface ordered his own beheading, and Saint Sebastian was eager to have wooden splinters driven under his nails, have his flesh torn by metal hooks, and to eventually be dipped headfirst into a tub of boiling pitch. It has been hundreds of years since we believed it was our lungs, not our heart, that create the gentle flex and tremble that cause blood to move. In the beginning of the 2nd century, Roman authorities publicly tortured and executed Rabbi Akba ben Yosef to destroy the spirit of his people. Falsely imprisoned in Carthage, Illinois, Joseph Smith rushed the mob of gunmen as they came through the door. Tied to a tree, St. Sebastian's heart was pierced by an arrow, and Diocletian commanded his men to keep firing until the snap of bowstrings filled the air and Sebastian's chest couldn't be seen for the quills. Scholars believe somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 people were killed during the 140 years of the Spanish Inquisition. Faith, it would appear, runs in our blood. Because too often, spilling one is the most effective way we know to show the other's existence. Yet, in the 300 plus years since Leeuwenhoek first looked at the gently dipping ovals that rushed through us, 1.5 gallons at once, we have found nothing to support this. Still, we spill more blood. Red pools diffusing light, baptizing sod and stone in this space. We spill more blood, and when the gallons are gone, when humanity's veins have thinned past transparency, when its marrow has dried and dusted, is there a song that is sung from the hollow bones? Does it matter what hymn is created from this final collapse if there is nobody left to sing it? We're going to hope that's the most I mess up tonight. So, this one's called Playing School, and it actually is about an experience, at least in part, that I had here teaching at Utah State. Let's talk about education. Let's talk about the power of knowledge and the desire to learn. Let's talk about the hundreds of thousands of school kids Oprah didn't just buy new computers for. Or the millions of African kids whose schoolhouse didn't just get a new roof because they don't have a schoolhouse to put it on. And how we pat ourselves on the back, fluff our pillows, and drift to sleep thinking happily about the lesser half of these equations. Let's talk about desire and the returning student whose 50 plus years on this planet have taught her more than her 28-year-old instructor could write in 100 books, and how she still shows up to a class because of a belief that even this young, arrogant shit can teach her something new. Let's talk about how she shows up to class despite sickness and shakes, despite struggles with bipolar disorder, despite memory loss caused by the electroshock therapy Harvard doctors put her through in the 60s. Let's talk about the day she suffered vision loss and shook in a way that only those of us who have had our concept of reality spun on a top can understand. The rush to the emergency room, and how she cried as her son guided her to the car because all she wanted was to learn. And what about the single mother reading Goodnight Moon to her daughter, dreaming that the inner city school the girl will attend could get more funding, or the upper class high school quarterback whose pockets should be filled with vending machine change but are filled with the pills he needs to keep up with the pressures of expectations and ideals thrown on him by parents and teachers and a society that only cherishes the individual in success or distress. Can we talk about these things? Or do they slide past our fingers, touching only briefly? Only in passing on our way to the video store to rent Empire Records or the Breakfast Club. Because I need to fall into pop culture like the cushions on my oversized couch. Because the walls of my skull are still reverberating, still vibrating, still trembling with the image of this woman being helped out of my class. The class where 20 kids in their 20s listen to one kid up front pretend his thumb can pin the world's knowledge to an overhead transparency. So that poem is slightly dated with the video store reference. They used to have stores you would go to. And I don't know, have they upgraded Raby West? Do we not have the old projectors with the transparencies?
We sort of do. Some of the classrooms do.
Wonderful, so it's still applicable. I love it.
Russ Wynn.
Ask Russ Wynn. Okay, I will talk to him about that. Okay. This next one actually also comes out of an experience I had in Logan. I worked for about a year here as a youth counselor for at-risk youth. And when I had the interview, my future boss didn't tell me until after I'd accepted the job that I'd be working with teen sex offenders, which is something you might want to mention at the start of an interview process, but I'm glad I still took the job because I learned just an immense amount. And one of the things that stood out the most to me was how we as Americans, we are comfortable to a vast extent talking about drug use and talking about violence. But anything that deals with sex, unless it's a man and a woman married having consensual sex, we don't want to talk about. The reason this is a problem, what I noticed, is because there are serious issues we need to deal with that are getting brushed under the rug because we don't feel comfortable talking about them. There's a massive sex slave trade in this country. There is a porn industry that is horribly deregulated to the abuse of many of its employees. And we don't think about these things because they make us feel squeamish, squirmish. So anyways, this is called Of Armor. Chris asked me to read his letter. The one in his scratchy 9-year-old handwriting, the one where he was supposed to apologize to the 6-year-old girl he sexually victimized. I'm sorry about what I did to you under the slide of the park, that I made you take off your clothes and watch me touch myself. The subject matter feels out of hand. The tiny lettering feels out of hand with the subject matter, and I'm left with the same questions ringing through my head. How do you explain and define empathy to a child whose mind can't keep up with the hormones the neighbor down the street awoke in him too early when he invited him to play games in the basement? How can I expect a mind more suited to fantasies of armor-clad heroes fending off fire-breathing dragons as they clamor around the castle gates to understand the depth of damage some games have? He knows you don't hit because it hurts. Bruises rising in testament to the cause and effect of this scenario, but when I try and explain that sometimes the worst bruises don't show up on skin, he looks at me lost in the details of trying to grasp these less tangible parts of reality. It's the same look I see on his mother's face when, after their weekly visit, she hesitates to hug him. How do you rebuild a sense of reality that never had time to take shape? There are days when I want to hug Chris, tell him that his life isn't ruined, that what was done to him doesn't have to shape his time in this world any more than it already does. But his eyes struggle to see beyond this evening, and how he doesn't get to sleep at home because the man in the black robe felt he was too dangerous to be around his siblings. But then I remember spinning my niece in circles on my front lawn, and I can't look at Chris. This is my flaw, not his, but I can't stop my head from filling with the sounds of knuckles breaking on the hands of anyone who would ever think of touching her. Every night after work I kneel, pleading to whatever God may be looking down on us to send legions of angels with flaming swords to protect her and my nephews, at least until they're old enough to protect themselves. Send them an armor-clad hero, because I can't help but see dragons all around, and the gates of protection these arms would offer are only good during the times when I'm there. And the tough part is that the judge was probably right. It isn't safe for Chris to be around his siblings. It shows in the way his face loses its expression in a sick separation of himself from reality when he catches a glimpse out the window of school children walking home. Now, this separation, it helped Chris survive that basement, but it's also the force behind the knife that cut into the virtue of his victim, hormones, and hands that were never entirely his. And tomorrow, when I come into work, Chris is going to smile and ask if we can play baseball for free time. So somewhere between strikeouts and pop flies, I'll say a prayer for Chris. Because for him, there was no hero. So now he has to build his own armor, hammer and anvil, forge and flame, sealing the dragons that have burrowed inside him away. So when he hands me another draft of another letter, I'll reach out with hope to see some growth and understanding, to see that his mind is growing to keep up with the emotions he is going to have to deal with for the rest of his life, to see that he's preparing himself to return to the world and his family, and to be the hero they're going to need him to be. Thank you. You guys have been awesome.
You've been awesome.
So this one, I won't even introduce it. It's called The Night Before I Lost My Retainer. The sun sits heavy, pulling the lapping ocean up against it. My dad is lighting a barbecue, dirty fingers pinching a fast-burning match below black bars, caked in the residue of other people's evenings, other fathers and sons, the burnt, crusted foodstuffs of late Alaskan nights at Fisherman's Wharf. In a moment, we will grill the halibut we caught just hours before on the boat that tried to teach my head a new rhythm. The boat, it talked to me, told me what the sea had told it. Life moves forward and down and back and up and forward and down and back and up. This lesson rolled around inside my head, but I couldn't grasp the concept. So I spit its words back at the sea in a vibrant mix of pink and orange. My gift to the fish we wouldn't catch. Back on shore, my dad stokes the flames that now outshine the sun, as though the rotations of the world had shifted and the galaxies now rotated around us, around this boy and his father, around his week's worth of beard growth and my week's worth of trying, around a modest step in the transition to manhood. Just like Ptolemy and Aristotle thought, we are the center of the universe. Or at least we were then, sitting on a park bench with peeling paint, eating flesh carved from the softest, most honest part of this world. I say honest because what it told me was true. Life does move forward and down and back and up, and the cycle repeats, and most days I can't take it, can't handle the drop and rise of life, so I put my head in between my knees and take deep breaths and hold on to whatever's near, hoping someone is near. And I find an arm, and I feel the arm. Is it his? Is it yours? It doesn't matter, because they all have the same rhythm, the same beat beneath the skin, blood pulsing forward, vessels pushing one way onward, in veins that cut narrative lines through that forward and down and back and up. This one, I'm actually doing something really cool right now. So I've been wanting to tour for a while. That's one of the things that performance poets do a lot. And the main reason I haven't done it is because everybody that goes on tour has merch. They have stuff they sell. And I refuse to self-publish a book of poetry because as soon as you do that, most publishers won't take it. And so I have nothing to sell. But what I decided a while ago, do any of you know who the Oatmeal is?
Yeah.
Oatmeal fans? Okay, awesome comics, right? Hilarious. So I was reading his comics one day, and they come on like these posters, and I was like, that could work as poetry, some of his stuff. Like, it's really awesome. So I was like, I'm gonna do that. But I suck at drawing. So I teamed up with a really cool artist. His name's Craig Claiborne, and he's gonna work with me to turn some of my poems into comic-like posters. And then I will probably at the end of this summer go on tour and hit a couple states, and I would love to come back to you guys if you would have me. So anyways, that's one of the things we're working on, and this is actually, we're working on the first poster right now, and this is the poem for the first poster. Apologies to the emo kids. I have failed you. I do not scare you shitless. I do not make your chest pump with adrenaline as you lash elbows out in all directions, swinging with the most honest of motivations. Fear for your life. I remember tattooed behemoths lunging around me, mohawks like battle spears threatening impalement at every punk rock show I attended in high school. At the Vandals show in '97, a 300-pound beast with 2-inch spikes protruding from his dog collar and a tattoo screaming, "Murder for fun," on his chest, foamed at the mouth as he stampeded towards me. And that was the first time I ever saw God. All 110 pounds of me ran flush with chemicals your body saves for things like carjackings or nuclear attacks. And harnessing them, I lowered my shoulder into his gut and dropped him like the paradigm I'd just outgrown. Then I ran like hell. Because for me, each concert, each mosh pit, threw my own mortality in my face as only being stretched over that bloody mawing gap between this life and the next can. Because back then, it wasn't a good show unless you left with somebody else's blood on your shirt. So, as I stand in line outside the state fairgrounds, a July sun turning this parking lot into an 800 square foot frying pan, waiting for my chance to catch the bouncing souls and bad religion, and I have to listen to you whine about how dark and tortured your soul is as you repeatedly brush your bangs out of your eyes, adjust your black Hot Topic shirt with the catchphrase about anarchy, and fidget in what must be your girlfriend's jeans. I feel the words of some revival tent preacher percolating inside me. He's singing, "Repent, it is never too late to repay those you have sinned against." And I'm thinking, fingers pulling tightly together, knuckles straining against the skin that covers them, you might be right. So I got 3 more. This is a poem in 2 parts. So I'm going to do the whole part 1, part 2 thing. Yeah, that's all I'll say. Part 1. My mother joined the Mormon church when she was 23. I don't know how many nights she lost in worry over what her Presbyterian parents would think, rehearsing the apologies and explanations she might offer to them over the last morning coffee they would ever share. But I know she was willing to lose them if that's what it took to follow what she believed. Because, shit, y'all, she believed. She believed in temples as a house of power and sealing, binding families together like braiding rope, over, under, ordinance, covenant, each cross, tuck, and pull, making the individual more a part of the whole. She believed that in heaven there are many mansions, and she wanted her husband and children with her under the same roof. So the other day in the car, when she said she had noticed I was no longer wearing my garments, that the recognizable ring of white undershirt woven and worn to symbolize my promises to God and church no longer popped out the neck of whatever else I was wearing, I could hear the hurt in her voice. And the stumbling pause between syllables rings heavier in my mind than the sound of the covenants I walked away from breaking, falling to my feet with the weight of the rope that bound us. A failure. That's what she said she felt like. And for a woman who dedicated most of her life to teaching school, I can see the logic. Two of her eternal unit walked away. Her 2 boys have chosen to stray, and 2 is 1/2 of 4, and 1/2 is 50%, and 50% has always been failing. 2. My mother, you are not a failure. Can't you see that it was you who taught me to follow my convictions? And I know they haven't led me where you hoped they would. I know they've got me outside the temple walls, a lifetime away from celestial vows, more than not with you. You believe kept from you. But mother, I need you to know that whatever's waiting for me on the other side, be it halos and choirs or brimstone and fire, I will stand in the shadow of whichever god or gods are waiting there to pass their just judgment. I will stand there like I imagine you did, the day you had to tell my grandfather, proud Presbyterian holding his ground in the land of Mormons, that you were going to join the very people he had used to define himself against. I will stand there remembering every lesson you ever taught me with all the confidence you gave me. I will stand there sure, unafraid, and holy. Mother, this is what I believe in the face of winds thrashing judgment with heaven's breath, and I will stand by that, by you, regardless. So instead of waiting for the prodigal's return to start the feast, go ahead, stoke the coals, prepare the fattest of the flock, and know that thanks to you, I will never be lost. This one also involves my mother, but in a totally different way. Okay. And this is actually based on a true story. Our mother cringes, gripping the wheel tighter with each round of this sibling competition, though it really is more a battle of the sexes, where our most awkward frailties and bodily functions form the frontline fodder. Sitting in the back seat of our family's old Wagoneer, my sister whispers, "Panties," in a poisonous tone, which I casually parry with an enthusiastic jockstrap. An evil grin spreading across her face, she blurts, "PMS!" And I retort in a squeaky yet proud voice, "Testicles?" Trying to hide her revulsion at the thought of the wrinkled little oysters, she manages ovaries. But quick thinking allows me to use pubes before she does, since technically it could go either way. Realizing I had dealt her a double blow, she reaches deep into her icky bag of femininity to hit me with tampon. My 9-year-old mind momentarily stunned, frozen there, picturing all the things I wished I hadn't seen while passing the garbage can in our shared bathroom. It takes me longer than I'd like to stutter out a single syllable. Sperm? Rounds pass in a blur as we burn through bone or uterus, scrotum, douche, condom, queef, wet dream, fallopian tubes, foreskin, and labia, though I had no idea what the last one was. Rounding the final turn home, our mother sighs, knowing the game will soon be over. So, in a final attempt to seal my victory, I try to steal urethra, but the bump of the driveway jars me before I can get the word out. Okay, so this is usually the one that I end on, and I don't know why exactly, it just feels like a good ending piece. It's also one of my riskier pieces. I feel like as performance poets, like in the slam poetry community, we feel like an edgy bunch. You know, we feel like we push limits and we take risks, but it's all a very safe risk-taking because you're around other risk-takers who all feel the same way you do. So you're all pushing against the norm and nobody's taking any risks. And I think good writing needs to be risky, and I don't mean pushing boundaries to offend intentionally or to be edgy intentionally. I mean writing about the things you believe and willing to write about them passionately that you risk offending people. And I think if you're a writer and you're not offending somebody, you're not trying hard enough. You're not being honest enough. And so this is actually the only other poem that I've had where I really worried about offending people, and actually people have told me they were offended. It's one I cut for tonight called Dear Christians. And actually the two people who complained about it to me were not Christian. They were just offended on behalf of Christians. So that was cool. But this is called Handle with Care. One more sip. Standing in front of the mic, I shout, "Fuck!" towards the sky. I cry, "God damn it." My voice wavering on the edge of pain as memory cuts me in two. And he tells me, grabbing my attention with a gentle tap of his finger on my shoulder as I retake my seat, that I shouldn't use those words. That I'm forcing language that is too dangerous, too inappropriate, too crude on my audience. I want to explain to him all language is dangerous, a risk, an offense. I want to explain to him how dangerous this can be. As the bar door slammed in his face, Michael struggled to understand how such a simple word could make his bones feel like they were going to burst from the inside out. "You two can come in," the barman said, "but this will have to stay outside." As Marley watched her lover walk down the stairs they once shared, it wasn't the fuck that wore itself into her skin, but the this that followed it. As Jessica scratched out the careful cartography of the last thoughts she would ever have, they read, "I just can't handle this." A demonstrative pronoun. A modest word meant merely to point something out, 4 letters, 1 syllable that can be filled with anything. And as he looks at me, waiting for my response to his accusation, his indictment of my diction, I want to tell him about all the other dangerous, scandalous, inappropriate words like try, look, touch, back because able bring again words that can ignite revolutions, scatter fragments of unwashed dreams, draw and quarter the humble and meek at the feet of the oppressive, or forge the scaffolding that will lift them above their persecutors. These words, all words, are merely vessels, waiting for us to fill them with meaning and intention. Censorship and political correctness are empty answers. They're false solutions. As if by outlining certain words, we could stop ignorance and hate, put an end to discrimination over sex and race. As if burning words like books could stop the ideas behind them. If I tell my brother and his partner, amidst the laughter and communion of dinner, to quit being so faggy, is that more harmful, more offensive than a preacher screaming, "You're built wrong," from below his picket sign? If I label your bad decision retarded, my bad luck gypped, or a lazy friend a bum, is that as damaging as a disbelieving you, a disgusted those people, or a demeaning parasite? My world, I tell him, is one where words are versatile and vibrant and alive and, yes, dangerous. But it's also a world where ideas, intentions, and actions cannot be hid by subtly skirting around the corners of some imaginary list of words whose eradication might keep us safe. All language is potentially harmful, I tell him, and should be handled with care. Thank you, Chad, for having me up. Thank you, Star, for keeping Helicon going, and all of you are awesome people. Even those of you who I don't know yet, I'm sure you kick ass because you're from Logan, and that's a requirement to get into the school is to kick ass, and most of you are brought here for school. So, anyways, have a good open mic. I look forward to hearing your stuff.
One more hand for Darren. Well, it's time for open mic. You can tell because a bunch of people just ran for the door. So we have another full list. I'm going to introduce you three at a time. And so please come up and read your pieces. Just remember that we're shooting for about 7 minutes, and we want to keep it under that so that we can get everybody in. So the first three readers are going to be Noah Smith, Dennis Hinkamp, and Diane Harvey.
Hi, Noah.
My name is Noah. This is my first time at Helicon West.
All right.
So, we're gonna get sexy, sad, personal, and cannibalistic. I'm gonna read 2 poems. And therefore, my good friend Tyler Scott Keeper. This one's called Indefinite Probability. Spill, loamy laughter pill. Resonate unsullied filled my kitchen. Tomatoes, potatoes, and bagels you gathered. Catnip and mullion. Placed it on my stove. Train trash, a superhero. Panting puppy sidekick. Crisp snaps, 10,000 flaps of pages flipped. Dearly missed. My first New Year's kiss. My recollection of the night, misplaced, lost. Except for your champagne lips. Emerge into light-crusted perfection. You arrive from nowhere and depart everywhere. You're a titanic possibility. Your legend is dripping from our weekly clasped emotive mouths. Forecast future unprecedented, arriving from nowhere. Titanic possibility, embrace me again, you ephemeral entity. We imagine you with us now. Your suicide, your self-selection, it leaves us gasping, dazzled by blinding light and flaming hydrogen sky. This one has two working titles. The first one is White Powder. Oh, this one was, I read it at Needles Overlook in southern Utah. The first working title is White Powder, and the second working title is You Shot Yourself in the Head with a Gun in the Forest Like You Told Me You Would. I tend the juniper fire, ass and red sand amongst the salt brush. I feel you in my stomach. Your salt sweet remains. Still, sandy, crunchy grit reminder, crunch occasionally in my teeth. Don't want to drink beer, not water. I want your taste. I bring my wet fingers from my mouth, move them down, and place them in the silver cup you drank from as a child. I am wondering which part of you my saliva fingers are caressing as I memorize the massive structures Colorado River cut into the earth. Try to recall your arms around me, search for your face in the thunderclouds. The wind catches my wrist flick, my toss of your charred relics aimed at each in the fist. I am showered in white powder. You are the batter on my foreign middle, which I place into my mouth, like you told me, like you asked us to. What have I consumed? Scorched bone marrow, butterfly kiss eyelids, ovid, muddy campfire feeds, stomach lining, the tongue you place in my mouth, your manhood, the part of your thumb which flips 100,000 pages, corner of your fingernail which traces my arm, singed facial hair, nipples, iris, cartilage from your nose, ear. You taste as salty and as dirty as you always have. You feel good inside me like I knew you would. I feel you in my molars. Ha! You are there, in the landscape. I see you ascending a rock formation of red sandstone, clementine dog in your wake, tattered shirt, ragged cargo pants. I turn and give the silver cup back to your mother. My ash-eating grin is your enamel-coating shine. White powder peppers my beard. I brought a few print things I printed out over there.
Awesome.
So anyone can take them.
I'm here to bring up the average age of the room. I really admire what Darren did because I can't even remember my phone number without writing it on. This is the only way I can do is read stuff. So as usual, I preface this by apologizing to Terry Tempest Williams and all nature writers everywhere because, like Bob Dylan said, that ain't me, babe.
All right.
It's called The Bar in the Yard. Never cared much for nature writing because there's usually too much wafting and glimmering and shimmering and things that seldom happen in real life. I prefer to think of our backyard as an Elmore Leonard short story. And at this point, I wish I had a better Tom Waits voice, but think of if it was like that. It's just another day at the Hummingbird Bar, and an ugly mood hangs in the air like secondhand smoke. Every Hummer is nudging for position like it's the last 5 minutes of happy hour. The jukebox keeps playing that one shrill metallic song. Punch drunk on sugar water, the males zip awkwardly up and down like wounded helicopters to impress the ladies and scare off the other males. The females fidget on the sidelines, waiting for their turn at the juice when some saucy Oriole plops her tail feathers down on the Sugar Well bar stool. She tries to act like she knows what's going on, but the piercing arrows of 8 pairs of eyes staring down sharp needle-like beaks convince her that she's in the wrong bar. She takes a quick sip of her drink and quickly flutters off. One frantic hummingbird comes within an inch of my ear. I shouldn't have worn a red shirt today. I cursed them and threatened to replace their sugar water with Splenda just to see what would happen. But in the end, I relent and restock their bar with the good, red, sugary stuff because I know what it's like. Sometimes we all need a drink and an excuse to puff out our chests. On the other side of the yard, the squirrels bark at me and they tap dance down their power line highway. They think they're cute and clever, holding their winter stashes all over the place. In truth, they're belligerent and greedy. They loot the dog's outdoor bed for nesting material. They squabble with magpies over some useless bit of turf. Neither of them will back down. They agree to disagree, as if one is Hamas and the other one is Israeli Likud. I discover their cache of seeds and nuts in my travel trailer. I curse their existence and put an iron frying pan over their entryway. I throw their stash in the compost heap with no regrets. This is war, and I'm not the United Nations. Elsewhere, rabbits freeze in their clover patch, imagining themselves invisible. They act like teenagers. You think that if they're quiet long enough, they'll stop asking questions and leave them alone. The rabbits flourish only because the neighborhood has only house cats and lazy dogs. The only enemy is the little girl next door with a BB gun and an eye for mischief. So they live a lavish life as a solitary link in a no longer connected food chain. Yeah, they are cute, but cute can only get you so far in this world. Just ask Lindsay Lohan. There's also a couple quail families. One perfect nuclear family of a mother, father, and 5 chicks. The other family is a single mother with a lone chick. It's mean streets out there with hawks and owls, and she only pops out in the open for the briefest of moments. I wonder what stories she could tell. Has her mate been eaten, or did she split because he was fooling around with that barfly Oriole?
Last week I read the first half of a story about my cat, and so I'm going to finish it today. The narrator of the story is my cat Ara, and I am the owner. I'm Diane. Last year, a major crisis bonded me and her together like glue, you might say. Being psychic, I always know when she's going to leave me before she hauls out the suitcase. I've tried lying on top of it to protest her leaving. I've also hidden, refusing to say goodbye. Neither has worked. Anyway, last September, when she left, I knew this time was different. Felt it, and I was right. Instead of driving her car, she went away with Glade. Every few days, he'd let himself into our house and call, "Where's my good kitty?" The first time it happened, I fell for it and came running, but never again. Hiding under the bed, I thought, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. You know, I'm pretty smart. I said that better than that guy. Who was he? Oh yeah, President Bush. While at the house, Glade would set out food and fresh water. Then he'd start shoveling shit out of my litter box. Within a minute, he'd be gagging and cussing like a preacher. Revenge is beautiful. Well, Diane's absence wore on both of us. When she came home 3 weeks later, I was hoarse from crying and wild with fear. I wasn't about to let her touch me. Come to think of it, she didn't even try. She looked terrible. Had to use a walker just to go from our chair to the bathroom. And she winced with every step. Worse yet, she stared straight ahead all day. No writing, playing the piano, nothing. When the telephone rang, she didn't answer it, and Glade had to use his key to get in the house because she wouldn't go to the door. He'd come in, heat up a can of chicken noodle soup, and sit and watch her eat it. I knew then that something was wrong because she used to eat all the time, even in the night. After a week, Glade was tired of it, pissed off royally, in fact. "Mom, you're going to promise me you won't do anything bad, or you have to go live with Renee so she can watch you. Now, which will it be, goddammit?" When she didn't answer, he yelled, Either way, your cat will be gone, because none of us kids can take care of her. We already have animals, and she won't be able to adapt. You're all she's got." Diane looked at me, seemed to really notice me for the first time in a long time. I quit licking myself and watched her back. After what felt like an eternity, she softly said, "I promise, Glade, I won't do anything stupid," and broke down crying. He softened. "I know it's hard, Mom. Losing music must feel like death. But the doctors say when the drugs are finally out of your system, you might be able to play again. We've all got to be patient." Tammy had been at the hospital with Renee and Glade during Diane's knee surgery. She had to go back to Roosevelt to embalm people who she said were dying like flies. I like that. Once I found one, a fly on the windowsill, killed and ate it slicker than shit. Anyway, now all three kids were at our house. Mom was still in the staring into space days, but Glade and Renee were recovered enough to laugh a little. "When did you notice she wasn't all right?" Tammy asked. "She was doing well, but in a lot of pain while still in the hospital, so they gave her more drugs," Glade said. "Yeah," Renee agreed. 2 days later, they took her to the Sunshine Terrace to recover. She was on massive doses of morphine, Valium, and Lortab all at the same time. While in her room visiting, someone turned on the TV. It was the LDS conference, and Mom blurted out, "Turn that off, that's a conspiracy." Tammy laughed. I've never once heard her use that word. We hadn't either, Glade laughed. "I still feel bad for her nurse," said Renee. "A sweet young girl, and the more patient she was, the worse Mom treated her. Called her Nurse Ratchet in pink." "Oh, that's terrible," Tammy cried. "Do you think she got it?" Diane stared straight ahead in her own world, but I got it. I'm not called Aura for nothing. I looked over at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, sitting on the bookcase shelf. Diane loves Jack Nicholson because they're both rebels. The nurse was probably too young to know the movie, Renee said. At any rate, the place got its fill of Mom, said they couldn't deal with her condition if it continued. Told us to start looking into lockdown places, didn't they, Glade? Yes, we knew the problem was her medication, but the nurse couldn't change it without the doctor's permission, and we couldn't get hold of the doctor. Finally, a day or so later, we reached him, and he cut out everything but the lower tab. That's when she began to come around. Over time, Diane got off lower tab, and her appetite came back. When I heard her humming, "Staying Alive," I knew we'd made it. Still, I watched her closely, lay on her lap, and licked her, whole days sometimes. The doctor advised her not to push the music playing, said she'd know when the time was right to start it. I'd catch her staring at the piano at different times. Sometimes she'd cry, but mainly she slept and watched her old movies. The 13th day of her being home, I woke to find Diane shuffling through her movies. She reached for The Odd Couple. Knowing I needed to do something drastic, I leapt onto the chair, flew over to the shelf, and knocked Awakenings to the floor. It's about patients in a hospital for the chronically ill, and a doctor who brings them out of a catatonic state. "Damn it all, Aura, look what you've done," she yelled, shoving me to the floor. But she picked up the box, thought a moment, and put the movie into play. There's a scene where the doctor, Robin Williams, races onto the patient's ward in the middle of the night to find everyone chattering about their lives as though it were 40 years before. A man sits at the grand piano playing All the Things You Are, a Cole Porter song. With a jerk, Diane paused the movie and tossed me off her lap. "I can do that," she declared. She walked to the piano, sat, and played as though there'd been no hiatus, laughing and crying at the same time. We didn't even finish the movie. That was a year ago. Now Glade is having his own crisis. Diane has him come to eat lunch every day because he's depressed and gaunt-looking. I heard her make him promise the same thing she promised him, not to do anything stupid. I'm actually getting more used to him. Instead of running to hide when he comes, I stay put on our chair. Diane noticed and told me, "That's good, Aura. You need to stay in here with us. We're a family. Maybe you can help him like you did me." I remained skeptic. Still, Glade actually petted me yesterday. We'll see.
Great. We have three more. Matt Allred, then Russ Beck, and then I have a message.
Hi, I'm Matt Allred. I've read here before, but I've never been as nervous about it as I am today. I just put my first book on Amazon. It's called Kale in America, and a bunch of people are going to be reading it. My parents, my friends, my wife. And all of a sudden I feel like it's just a book of flaws. But I intended to read a part of it here once I finished and once it was posted, and so I'm going to. One problem with this, though, is that the voice is intentionally off-kilter, kind of austere, and so pretend that the clunkiness of it seems normal to you because you would have been reading the book and you're in that voice. It takes place in the future, so in some ways it's a sci-fi book, but it's also just kind of a personal piece. A theme I've come back to a lot is chastity, people who are religious, who want to be chaste, but who find opposition in that. Interesting tensions there, and we're going to see that. This young man in the story is going to a dance club called La Tormenta, named after Logan's own. And I think it wouldn't make any sense if you didn't know this about him, that he wants to be a religious person. He wants to be clean and pure in what that means to him. So here we go. Some of it obviously isn't going to make any sense, but just you'll figure it out. That same night, Adrian left the hospital, distraught, disgusted with himself, but not really feeling bad about what he had done. He had seen the lifeless look on her face and had still not been able to regret his actions, not really. As he wondered what was wrong with his mind, he walked to Baker Hart Avenue where La Tormenta was. The place was totally bumpin'. Inside, the lights strobed on and off. There were a lot of colors, and it was very loud. The sweaty air twirled around his face, and he felt completely anonymous in the insane crowd. People rammed their bodies into one another. Some of the girls were practically naked. Heads banged about his, lips protruded, and eyes shut tight in ecstasy or opened wide with lust. Music that was not quite illegal blasted out of the speakers mounted everywhere. That has to do with the story. A smooth, Mohican-sounding male voice pounded over the steady backbeat. The melody was acutely annoying to Adrian's ears, but he liked being there. The voice sang, "Baby, you got that body that's a-driving me wild. Have you got that feeling, huh? Have you got that style? You'll either go home alone or you'll get made. I know you know the way it is, how this game is played. Baby, I got something here that no one else can give. You do not yet understand what it means to live. So don't be coy, baby, not the way you was before. I know you know what it is I came here looking for. I know you know what it is I came here looking for." Female voices joined in for the refrain. Adrian thought hard about his mother, how much she would not approve, how shocked, how hurt she would be if she saw him then. He thought about Rose Girl and resolved to never tell her about this if she decided she would take him back. He thought about Samantha and how deeply he still loved her. He thought about how badly he wanted to be with her again and wondered if his longing for her would ever end. He stepped onto the dance floor and was momentarily frozen by the thought that they would know he did not belong. But soon enough, the girls with, he supposed, nothing to live for were grinding up against him just like he was anybody else. He was dangerously anonymous. They made sure to move their backsides in a circular pattern around his lap. It didn't seem natural. He drifted away from one girl who was very persistently rubbing him with her body. He moved in closer to the middle of the dance floor. Smoke from cigarettes mixed with smoke from machines and poured down from above and bloomed up from below. Lights shimmered and blinked ethereal through the combined fog. He let someone else move up against him, but he fled after about 20 seconds. He saw one girl who was stunningly beautiful. She was dancing, but not up against anyone. He realized he had seen her before. It was the girl he used to work with in Salt Lake, Alina Siske. He couldn't believe that she was there or that she was still so pretty. He shook off another girl who had attached herself to him while his defenses were down and tried to get closer to Alina. It was hard to move through the thick crowd of people. The song changed. The beat was slower but still insistent. The female voice, mature and alluring, sang to him. Its melody was heavy, fully intoxicating against a dreamy instrumental flux of horns and strings. At the time, all of these recordings were at least 50 years old. You must have tricked me. You have put something in my drink. Oh, and you never loved me. I think you had better leave. You use black magic. You are a demon. I can't believe I ever loved you. Always loved you. Now I cannot let you leave. Very suddenly, the voice in the song jumped to a higher octave and was almost yelling. The effect was startling, and Adrian began to lose touch with the world around him. He started to fade like a ship going farther out to sea. He moved closer to Elena, her long, light brown hair flipping in the light. Remove my t-shirt, remove my short skirt, remove it all, remove my will. Just take what you want, just take what I got, and take it all. You take your fill. I am nothing, I am your plaything. You got it all, I should be killed, the song went. He got to her and tapped her shoulder. He felt nothing, like the pressing of cold steel onto an unseeing eye. The music dropped back down to its deceptive calm. You didn't fool me. You know I had nothing to drink. Oh, and you don't have to love me, but also you don't have to leave. Adrian said, Elena? She turned to him, not understanding what was said. When she recognized him, she said, Adrian? He couldn't understand her either, so she grabbed his hand and pulled him through strangers off the dance floor. Her hand was electric on his skin. It was very different than the dancing he had experienced earlier on. When they got to one of the club walls, they could hear a little better. She said, what are you doing here? It's very complicated. Haha, for me too, let's not talk about it. Okay, I've never been here, or I've never been anywhere like this before. This is my first time. She said, well, I've never been here before either. They still had to speak pretty loudly. Adrian got on the train in his mind and said, I've always thought you were so beautiful, but I never told you. She looked at him and smiled. She had greenish eyes. They were hazy in the smoky room. I always wondered, why didn't you tell me? I was dating someone. Oh, Samantha, right? He said, yeah. So what's the deal? You guys still together? No, I told you, it's complicated. Well, you're seeing someone else then? No. He watched the sweat begin to dry on her face. She said, well, I've had just about the worst day of my life, and it's good to see a familiar face. That's, I guess, all I have time for. It just goes on because it's a novel. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
More chanting, that's
Russ,
fine.
Russ, 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 Russ. Come on, people.
Like they've never been to a chant before. I had something else that I was going to read, but I'm actually going to read something that from the glory days. Something I wrote. One of the first things I ever dared write about my mission that I read here a long, long time ago. So yeah, I'm going to read that. Yeah, okay. Don't record this, actually. That sounds really dumb, but there's names in this that I need to take out, that I've never taken out. And
Nice. I'm going to read an essay to you. This is about fly fishing. It's called Then Came November. Let me explain the way winter arrives here at the northern tip of the Wasatch, because you might be under the impression it arrives at the winter solstice, December 21st, or that it has something to do with the declination of the sun, the way it rides so low in the sky and sets before ever chasing the icy sparkle from the banked up snow. You'd be wrong about that. Around here, winter begins in December, but it always arrives much earlier. It may come as early as Labor Day. It might hold off until Christmas. Most typically, it's October. It happens like this. You hike up the canyon to fly fish an isolated stretch of river. You're wearing a t-shirt. You've not decided which fly to tie on yet because the fish you're after haven't exhibited a sign of choosiness for several months. They'll bite down on almost anything. The maple leaves are blood red and the aspens are golden, but it still feels a lot like August. Then you notice the absence of fleeing grasshoppers in the dry grass at your feet, and just as you are about to bring this to the attention of your fishing buddy, a gray, wet cloud slides across the sun, and instead you ask him, "Hey, did you bring a jacket?" It gets cold in a hurry, but you fish. The wind blows and there's rain. You catch fewer fish than you caught a week ago, fewer by half. That's because you're fishing as if it's summer, but it's not. Winter has arrived. It hasn't started yet, but it has come. This year, winter hit me like a minivan. The last thing I remember distinctly is a trip to the Outer Cub River, mid-October. The water was clear as gin, and a single rust-colored caddisfly worked like a voodoo fetish to coax almost 50 cutthroat to my net. These fish were irrational, reckless. They came up from deep holes, crossed from one side of the channel to another to take a fly. I was extra careful when returning each to the stream. Clearly, they could not be trusted with their own safety. It went like that until the sun ducked behind the rim of the canyon. I sat down to remove a pebble from my boot. I'd been walking on it for hours, thinking that if I stopped fishing to take it out, I might break the spell. Then came November, and there he was, winter, unmistakable. A temperature inversion descended. For a week, it never got above 20 degrees. The sun peered white through the haze like a portal to some paler, colder universe. Anchor ice began appearing in the floor of the Logan River. It wasn't even December. When days grow short and dim, everything seems more serious than it actually is. A summertime problem is a wintertime crisis. A crisis in autumn becomes a calamity just a month later. If I tell you I was coping with a major personal emergency early in November, that should indicate my condition on the first weekend in December, when it got even colder. Single-digit temperatures in the day, below zero all night. The solstice was still 2 weeks away. Ordinarily, I wouldn't fish under such conditions. My autumn crisis made me want to fish even less. But I'd arranged to fish with my friend Latrell, who was visiting from Texas. He'd gotten it into his head that he must catch a fish from one of our high mountain streams. I advised against this. You understand how cold it is out there? Yes. You understand there's a decent chance we may perish? Yes. On the morning of Saturday, December 7th, it was 5 degrees with winds gusting to 20 knots. With wind chill, it was 17 below when we got into the river. We fished. I number that day among the worst I've ever known. After each cast, the water froze onto the actual fly line, forming a glassy chain that could be broken up only with considerable effort. Between that and a down canyon wind, it was difficult to cast even in a forward direction. Accuracy was out of the question. My waders were laminated in ice, and hoarfrost formed on my beard. After 20 minutes, Latrell said, "I can't cast. Everything's frozen up." I slogged across the stream and steered Latrell toward the one bend I thought we might fish before succumbing to exposure. "Cast in there," I said, pointing, raising my voice against the wind. "Cast right in there." Latrell's ice-hampered fly line flopped over heavily and nowhere in the vicinity I'd indicated. "There," he said. "If that's the best you can do, then yes, there." By some accident, Latrell set his hook on a small brown trout. For proof, I took a photo. It was hard to know if that fish even wanted to get back in the water. Within 10 minutes, we had retreated to our trucks, and we haven't discussed the matter since. My troubles worsened. I lost track of days. I was sleeping a lot. My friends and family told me they were worried. I claimed I was fine, refused to explain myself. My plan, fish through it all, work it out like some melancholy hero. This didn't really work. Winter had pushed me to the ground, and I guess he stood with his foot on my neck for a while because I couldn't take a clean, deep breath for a month. But there's something else that happens around here. Every so often there is a break in the weather. I'd forgotten. It happens like this. You get in your truck and head for the river. As you drive, you hold one hand over the heater vent, then the other. Then you notice a blue rupture in the canopy of the inversion out over the Wellsvilles, as if there is a weak spot in the sky there. Soon the entire sky is dark blue, and all around is melting, dripping. This year, the break came one day when I met up with Jason to fish the Oneida Narrows. He brought his dog, a Labrador Retriever, who waits by the riverbank and then charges into the water to chase after the fish we hook. We call her the blonde torpedo of destiny. It was the first time in a long time I fished the bear. I confessed I didn't know the best way to catch anything. We can swing some streamers, said Jason, maybe try some nymphs. When we stepped out of Jason's muddy Honda, we knew it was the kind of day when catching fish is less than paramount. The air was clear, windless. The sky was an improbable cerulean. We hiked downstream. Everything was melting, dripping. The blonde torpedo of destiny loped out ahead, mouth agape, tongue lolling. A bald eagle coursed overhead so close, I saw its winking eye as it tilted to take a look at us. We swung our streamers. We tried our nymphs. The fish obliged us. I watched Jason land a trout and let it go again. I squinted into the glimmer of the sun on the water. Jason looked at the sky. This day, he said, shaking the water from his hand. I mean, my God, what a day. This year, the vernal equinox will fall on the 20th of March, here and everywhere. But in Cache Valley, spring has already arrived. It hasn't started yet, but it has come. So apparently there's one amongst us who calls himself Ruin.
Herself.
Herself. Ruin is next, followed by Brittany McDonald, followed by Caitlin Erickson. Ruin, take it away.
This poem's called I'm So Much Like the Buddha, It's Fucking Unreal. Redundant malediction, I am not important. Like what's a cup of coffee compared to peace of mind? So in love with my bitter, it's the only thing I can confide in. Liar thinking way too hard about the word skeleton. And this is how you say the fuck up strikes eternal in nonsensical sigils. Broken oracle embers burnt the form of your never friend, dead to this world. Bent into cornered portrait of bad dog torture, beautiful. I feel bad for the men who've seen you naked, and I still fucking miss you like I was dead. So heartless burning bridges, call it blackout, water too little too late, and return to the end all sad song like it ought to be sung some more. The embodiment of needless, chimera cry and nightlight in my daytime anxiety attack. I can't hack existence. I mean, what is it to simpletons like me? The written martyrdom self-inflicted, seriously, so fucking stupid. It hurts friends' hearts until they realize I'm not worth it. Honestly, I don't get how they think anything's worth it when existence in this civilization is so trivialized. Maybe I'm just vindictive, but I figure if I'm going to be human, I might as well do it right. Talk shit behind people's backs, hate others for the good that they have. I'll lie my way out of any situation I don't want to deal with, belittle another to make myself seem superior, and I'll preach the opposite of my actions just to fit in on this godforsaken planet. Shit's mad fucking dangerous, even with sarcastic jackassery masking my true coordinates, kept out of mind. Purity just gets dirty easier. Try and remember that the next time you find yourself on the high moral grounds. And that it's easy to drown, but you can't if you become a part of the water.
Thank you.
One more. This one's called Why I'm Afraid of the Dark. Broken, the only ghost haunted me, obviously some kind of reject. Avalanche felt fantastic, I never was myself. Like bullshit, cryptic meanings when bullshit. Recycling vocab and cadence like it'll save the planet, and I actually give a shit about its inhabitants. Misanthropy a little too frequent to discount it completely. Disappointment to the bone, my own mother doesn't know me anymore. Though she claims love still and drunk, let the defense down, I still refuse to be honest. Keep myself fucked living the act, guess it's just habit. And have yet to meet anyone who can convince me that it's worth it to quit, as if no one else sees the masks. And you don't ask a bird not to fly, you clip its wings. Smolder and fucked, fallen beautiful, goddamn hating me for it. Or at least is afraid of it, its effects on me and my interactions with the rest of the peasants. Defense of self-destruction, but I'm not sure if divine wind safety hurts worse than the illusion of belonging. Everybody at two brutes, hey, at least inane empires on the line these days. Just lives, like we don't see suffering, or I just missed something during the lessons on how to be human. Either way, why do we think we're worth saving? Why everyone thinks I'm Satan? Everyone thinks I'm way too sensitive and balanced upon the brink of useless. Fool's inevitable precipice, death's painful to behold. So don't tell me that you love me. Please just love me and let me feel it. I'm so sick of feeling like we all are alone, and I never should have been here. I never should have been here, and we all are alone. But I don't want to let my lonely make me bitter anymore. I want to be a part of this world.
Yeah.
So
peeing my pants because you guys were so great and it's coming back. So, don't worry. All right, this is a poem I wrote called The Internet. The Internet, you said, as if that would douse me after I offered you my arm. The Internet, you said, there'll be 10 guys to one of you, I'm sure you'll be an instant hit. So to the Internet I went, and waiting for me there, like you said, were men for women, men for men, couple for women, couple for couple, and a few virgins for sale. I didn't even have to make an ad because the first ad I responded to me in 10 minutes under the title of Bed Buddy. Thus began my sexual wanders that led me to the beds of boys with stubble, men with double chins, boys with staring eyes, men with pinching hands, boys that bit, and men who cried. The Internet led me to the beds of strangers every damn time. But when you first said the Internet to me, the Internet gave me a boy who was just a little like you, who would sneak me in when his parents weren't home, and who would appreciate my feet while his stuffed animals watched. I sent you his face and said, I still want you. But then you started yelling and I went home. The Internet, you said, so to the Internet I went. I was scared when the Internet gave that boy to me, up in the middle of the night, sick and sure to die, but I couldn't tell you. The Internet was all you said, then yelled. So I put on my thong, at least it held me right, and went where the Internet led me. You'll never care, but the Internet had a dozen lips and hips and sheets for me to wear, and none that smelled like you. The Internet, you said. So to the Internet I went. Thanks, guys.
Sensing a theme. Okay. I want to second Brittany, and there's like lots of awesome happening last week and this week, so it should continue to happen. We should just have it every week. Okay. I'm continuing the memoir that I was reading last week. So if you weren't here, sad times, but you're here now, so awesome. Okay. I'm kind of nervous. Deflower. The first time we have sex, Adam pulls me into his lap, stifling me with his mouth and running his hands down my spine. I don't bleed, but it hurts, like stretching muscles too far during gym class. Tears slide from the corners of my eyes. My mascara leaves smudges of black on the outer corners. It's okay, I whisper. I just tear up easily. I don't think he hears. It ends quickly. It's his first time too. He doesn't know how to remove a condom correctly. He pulls from the tip of it, and after tugging hard, it comes away with a snap. Fuck. He cringes and rubs where the latex fit him. I flinch at the word. He stands and leaves the room, not bothering to put on boxers. We've graduated to fucks and condoms and walking around naked now. When he comes back, he lies in the bed, and I lay next to him, pulling the covers around me. I arrange them under my armpits so they drape across my chest in what I hope is a grown-up way. I nestle into the spot between his neck and shoulder, slip my arm across his chest, and tangle one of my legs with his. It's foreign to me, but it's what I see in movies. He taps melodies on my shoulder with one hand and rests the other under his pillow. He breathes out long and slow, like he's just taken a drag on a cigarette, and I realize I've been holding mine in. We lay there together, him with a smirk scrawled on his face, me curled into his side, silent. The blinds let in slices of sun that dices our bodies in light. How did you know? I finally ask him, voice muffled against skin. I just did, he says, the mattress cringing as he shifts to face me. His hair flops onto his forehead. You had a look in your eyes and I knew you were ready. His hand slips into the divide between my ribs and my hips, moving across my belly. I don't have a response. I let him put his hands wherever he wants. He's gained that privilege, I think. And an hour later, I ask him to drive me home because my sister gets off work at noon and she'll wonder where I've gone. As he stands and fishes for his boxers, I look at him. All of him. His skin is pale, almost as pale as mine, but apart from an inverted triangle of curly black hair on his chest, he is bare. Broad shoulders whittle to a narrow waist and sculpted legs. He could pass for 16, but he is 21. I am 15. I look my age. He insists on hooking my bra for me and I let him, even though it sits too high on my back and I want to fix it when I get home. He takes the less traveled route to my house. As he drives, he taps the steering wheel in time to Lincoln Park. I stare at blurred shrubs and trees, flowers dotting spots of color in the landscape. We pass tall hedges, where once, during a fight, he threw his cell phone out the window. "I won't need it anymore," he screamed through sobs. "You're the only person I want to talk to." When we made up, he looked for the phone for hours, but never found it. He seems happy, but I'm torn. In 3 months, I'm 16, and he'll want to be my official boyfriend. I imagine dates with him and my friends. I imagine him walking up to my doorstep like a normal person and trying a red rose corsage on my wrist for homecoming, and winter formal, and prom. I imagine him coming to my house for dinner like Jason, Verity's boyfriend, does, eating steak off worn white plates with enamel chickens painted on the borders, reaching down to scratch my dog Muffin behind the ears. He could visit me at school during lunch, and I could visit him at work, and it would all be normal. But I don't think it will ever be normal, and I don't know if I can sneak around for 3 more months. I'm running out of lies. My friendships are stretched tighter than guitar strings. I don't have any way to take birth control, and Adam doesn't like condoms. And when I think of high school, he's not in it. He's not my dance pictures or my lunch plans or my dates. He's not at my kitchen table, and he's not petting my dog. Adam drops me off a few houses down from mine. I watch him as he pulls into a driveway, reverses, and goes back the way he came. His eyes catch mine in the rearview mirror, and he waves. I know he's mouthed "I love you," even though I don't see it. I watch his Jeep become smaller and smaller before it turns a corner and disappears from view. When it does, I turn home, mentally writing an alibi for my sister in case she's there. I ignore the worry of pregnancy gurgling in my stomach and the feeling that I'm flailing in quicksand. I try to disregard his words thrumming in my head over and over, but they aren't as easy to flick away. You had a look in your eyes and I knew you were ready. The cyclone of mixed feelings screams that I wasn't, even if he says I was. Confession. Adam doesn't fit. In the drive from his house to my street, I've realized this. But I love him, and I can't bear to leave him like he told me everyone else had. I can't be the one who broke him. And I'm upset and irrational, so when I get home I write a letter. A long letter. A handwritten in sloped cursive and addressed to his mother letter. I tell her I love him. I tell her I'm glad he was my first. I tell her I'm 15. I drop it in the mailbox without looking at it, as though it is a naked man inhabiting a strange bedroom. 3 days later, when I answer the phone at my house, I recognize his mother's voice, now freckled with anxiety, from the time she came home too early. She asks for my mom. I tell her she is at home and hang up, panicked. When she calls again, Verity answers. I hear her half of the conversation. I hear Verity call my mom at work. I go to my parents' room and bury myself in blankets. My dog, Muffin, wobbles in and sits down next to me. I scratch her ears, my stomach swirling with dread as I hear the front door shudder open, then shut. For a while, it is over. I'm under house arrest. My mom sits on my bed and watches as I throw out my journals and every gift she thinks he's ever given me. She's angry with me, but she's angrier with herself. Adam isn't part of her plan for me. Adam slipped in, and I let him. The anger steeps in our house like poison. Only Muffin looks at me. When Mom has to work, she wakes me at 6 in the morning and drives me to my grandmother's house, who feeds me butterscotches and makes me play Yahtzee at her tiny kitchen table. I'm allowed to take one Harry Potter book, and that's it. Grandma is delighted at my company. She takes me to the movies and to Heber City and to local burger joints to eat milkshakes. The mall, however, is forbidden. Thanks.
Well, it's been great, y'all. We have 3 more readers, Laurel Frank, Ron Jensen, and then we'll end with Megan Burke.
Hi, Laurel. Hi, I'm Laurel, and I'm actually reading some poems that I wrote for Michael Souter's advanced poetry class last semester. I didn't have a chance to come last semester, so I'm here now. And I'm going to read a couple of poems that I wrote for that class. And I'll do that on this, so you don't wonder why I'm here. Okay, I'll start with, my first one is called Womb Potato, and this stems from an argument that my roommate and I have. She hates dogs and accuses me of hating babies, so this was my response. Womb potato. Bundled in sour cream, cottage cheese, perhaps mold, definitely mold by the odor. You'd be wrinkled and misshapen after 9 months in water too, but at least you've got eyebrows. Roommate coos its cuteness, and I'm branded Herod because I can't get past the cone head, smashed nose, inhuman wailing, pinched slime mouth, film of vernix. It scrubs away, so no more mold, but cute? Please, I see a clumpy spud. I am not blind to the tiny bead toes and miniature hands. Precious, beautiful, I suppose, miracle of life and all that. Aesthetically pleasing with slimy, empty gums. Cute with blotch red lump face. Sorry, but no. Now I'm gonna read Attack, and it's a sonnet. Electric stab down left hand, tingling, numb. My eyes swirl ink, hollow head, gut knot. My heart jerks faster, pulsing the irregular rhythm. Thrum, thud, thud, thrum, thud. Dizzy, dizzy, hot. Blood lurches in carotids. Echoes fly in heaving lungs. It's cardiac arrest, the imagined kind. My brain's big lie. Anthropology lecture repressed in favor of my gold-flecked stream rolling with imagined autumn leaves. Breathe, 2, 3. If it's ever real, I'll tumble, folding from my desk, treating myself for anxiety. Not crazy. Inhale, steady, 8, 9, 10. Not crazy, but that's my brain lying again. And on that note, I read this one last so you guys don't wonder why you wasted 5 minutes listening to me read. It's called Confessions of a Fictionist. I am not a poet. Shepherding words to my will is no trouble. I have a handle on assonance. I sound my words to turn them round as or soft as whole homemade bread, but I can make them crack with consonants too. But I draw attention to my ability to alliterate. Metaphors fly from my fingertips like swift, bright-winged silverfish. I can illustrate visual detail until the sun goes down. Until the sun slides beneath the mottled gray-green hilltops like a disk of butter, and capture a moment with slim lines of ink. As for obscure mythological references, I may as well have killed Vassar and drunk his blood for all the poetry in me. Now taste the smooth honey lemon that soothed my raw, red, shredded throat. Ache with me, squirm with discomfort, with eyes throbbing as we watch Grandma Marcy's kind, creased face degenerate to emptiness, vacancy. Watch me thrill, needle words of epinephrine. And watch me craft it all with the entertaining and the trivial. Somebody must write the Harry Potters and the Ender's Games and the, oh goodness, must I mention it, Twilights. My thanks to poetry for the pretty words. Forgive this literary turncoat for using them to disgust academia and delight the masses. Thank you.
Ron appears to have left. Megan, are you ready?
All right, Megan.
How do I move this?
Yeah, do that. Just turn it.
Give it a crank.
There. That good?
Okay, so I have two of them. One of them's funny and the other one's really angry. I was nervous. You seemed confident. I was shaky. You were still. You placed your lips upon mine and we kissed. To be honest, you sucked. When the tears have subsided, when the fear at the mention of your name ceases, then will I forgive you. When the pain of that little girl is healed, and I no longer have to throw up walls when you come near, then will I forgive you. You've not yet apologized, and until then you have not made sufficient effort. You forced your insecurities onto me. You forced your pains and guilt onto me in order to build yourself up. You forced your depression, self-loathing, and fears onto me. You minded when others did the same because I was your punching bag. You abused on a little girl, 4, 6, 7, 8, I don't even know how long it went on, because the brain blocks out trauma after a while. You're the reason I don't remember half of my life. You're the reason for my depression, anxiety, and many insecurities. You are a bastard. Instead of dealing with your problems normally, you took everything out on a little girl, yet I was desperate for your approval. But nothing I did was good enough. You would get me angry, and then when I would react legitimately, you would make it seem like I overreacted, and you would fill me with guilt, and I would apologize. And one day, your facade came crashing down, and I saw how fucked up you really were. You picked up a new punching bag, and I fell to the wayside. I'm so grateful not to be your storage for all of your shit. Somehow, you've tamed a wife who has deigned to marry you. I bet you've convinced her that you are the best she can get. I feel sorry for her. Now that you are gone, brother mine, I have been able to grow. I've been able to grow up into a strong woman who will take no shit. Because I can identify the douchebags like you, I can see the signs because I grew up with one. You don't deserve my forgiveness, not until you discover how much of a bitch karma can be, because you deserve it. Because you abused me for almost 15 years. Now physically I have no scars that can be seen, but my mind and soul are scarred and those wounds never heal. So no, I won't forgive you, not until you pull your head out of your ass. Look around and notice all the pain you've caused me, the pain I am still dealing with. Fuck you, brother. And one day, I hope you feel all of the pain and shit you've caused everyone over the many years that you have been alive.
That's Helicon West for tonight, people. How did you feel? Give your applause a round of applause. Next Helicon West is
February, around Valentine's Day.
February 13th. Come back, bring friends, bring some writing, and we'll do it again.
Put your chairs
Thank you,
down.
everybody.